Well, hey everyone, welcome to Burnett Church Online for this week. We're really glad that you're here. My name is Pastor Tim, and it is my honor to welcome you today. I have a couple of announcements for you just before we get into our message from last week. First of all, if you're watching this on Sunday and you are between the ages of 18 and 30, we've got a young adults community that's starting at my house tonight. So what is that, the 25th, Jordan? 25th of September, 7 p.m. You can get in touch with just about anybody from the church to get my address. I'm not going to put it online, so reach out to myself or Jordan, send us an email, text message, what have you, and we'll get you the details. Second thing I need to let you know about, we have entered the season where we are putting together our nominating committee because in January, our annual meeting is going to come up. And at our annual meeting, we consider new members for our leadership board. The NEC helps us to interview and consider candidates that are put forward by the church body. And what we would like now is we need 2 people who will serve on that nominating committee along with 2 members of the board and myself. So it's a short 3-month commitment. There's a number of meetings in there where you help us determine who will put forward to the church for approval for the board for next year, the year of 2023. If you're interested in that, we have a registration up on our website. You can go there and check it out, fill it in. You can nominate yourself or somebody else. If you're going to nominate somebody else, though, you need to talk to them first to get their permission. So go ahead, fill that out. Let us know. We need a few people, and we're hoping to have that all set up and filled in by October the 11th. The last thing I need to let you know about is that we're having a Life Sunday on October the 30th. Now, you might wonder, what is Life Sunday? Life Sunday is like our big family reunion that we do a couple times a year, and we take care of a bunch of the things that are celebratory in church life, things like baptisms. We baptize new believers at Life Sunday, or believers who just haven't had a chance to get baptized yet. We do baby dedications. And so if you or somebody in your family has recently had a baby and you'd like to get the baby dedicated, it would be our honor to dedicate them and commit with the church family to take care of them. The other thing that we do is we welcome new members. And as I said before, we're getting into that season where membership starts to actually really mean something because the annual meeting is coming. And so if you want to help us determine God's direction for our church through our budgets, through our leadership board, this is your opportunity to really participate in church life. So if you've been coming to Burnett for a while thinking this is your church home, we would deeply encourage you to become a member at Burnett. All 3 of those things are things that you can fill out a form on our website and let us know whether you're interested in, and we will get back to you and give you the relevant information. So the bottom line, go to the website, get all the information. If you're between 18 and 30, come out. We're really excited about getting our young adults community up and running this week. Whew. Okay, give me a quick second. I'm going to pray for you, and then we'll get on with the service. God, thank you so much for this community, for this body of believers you put together here through Burnett Church. Thanks for the gift that it is to be able to connect online, even when there's something keeping us apart. God, I pray for all those who are watching this week that you would be near them and with them. God, put your comforting hand on them and let them know that they're thought of and loved by you and by us, even if they're not here in the building this week. We pray these things in Christ's holy, precious name. Amen. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you after the service.
Hey everyone, my name's Tim. If we haven't met yet, I know we still have people coming through the doors all the time who are either new again because, that global pestilence thing, or just checking Burnett Church out, or came with a friend. We just want you to know that you're welcomed here. I'm the lead pastor, and it's really my privilege to speak with you today. I want to mention 2 things before I kind of dive into message. The first thing is team night. You might have heard somebody talk about this around here over the last little while, but team night is a night that we set aside 3-4 times a year to come together and just focus on who is God forming our community to be. Now, we do a few things. We like to celebrate. We like to have fun. We like to talk a little bit about the vision that God's given us. We like to give some training and some key information. But it's really open to anyone and everyone. We have kind of a catch-all group where Melissa tonight is going to talk a little bit about the things that we value and the culture that we're trying to build here. But if you're on worship team especially, hey, please come out. We got some really good news for you. Quinn is going to meet with her kids ministry team all at once for the first time. And so if you participate in kids ministry in any way, you're going to want to be here as well. But that doesn't mean it's not for everybody else. So anyone can come. If you have a few minutes tonight, we promise to keep it to a tight hour between 6 and 7 o'clock. I think it's a really valuable thing for anyone and everyone to come to. Oh, yeah, right, there's childcare if your kids are under 10. So if there's no other motivation for you, if you have a child under 10, you can get an hour of free childcare. It's totally free. Just come on out. We'll do it. You do have to sit in team night. I want to give special props to our youth team today, by the way. We just launched our youth program again this past Wednesday night. I think maybe we've got a photo of them and the crew, and again, our amazing wall that one of our church members did for us last year. And, as COVID has kind of changed a lot of things that we do, we don't really do this thing where we pass a plate anymore. So I just want to turn our attention towards generosity. And as we do that, I want you to remember that we've structured ourselves in such a way here that, like, it's not a pay for services kind of thing. Like, that you give money just because you showed up and took part in something. No. We have a higher value of giving through our church. So if you don't have any kids in youth group, guess what? You're still investing in these kids. You're still giving us the ability to have the training and the tools and the toys and all the things that we need in order to make the experience great, because what do we want? We want our kids to know Jesus. And at youth group, they get an opportunity to spend some time with some well-invested in men and women who want to invest in your kids. And so if you're wondering, how do I do that? I'm new here, or maybe new again. Most of our giving is now done online. We have a giving kiosk out in the foyer. You can find that. If you have any questions about it, there are still PAD and e-transfers and things like that as well. If you need any help, let us know. You can also, any week, point your camera at that big QR code, and it'll take you where you need to go. Okay? Sorry, those are the little business things I need to tidy up before we get into things. Last week, we started a series called Back at It. And the idea for 2 weeks is we're just going to talk about, hey, this reality that in September, this New Year kind of thing comes around again. And sometimes we just need a little reminder. It's like, okay, summer's finished, routine is starting, what does it look like? And for the church, this is really the first year in a while where September is, well, mostly normal, where COVID isn't the big concern on our minds. And so what does it mean to sort of get back at it? And so if you were here last week, that's great. A few people came and said, okay, right, I'm ready to get involved. And that was amazing. It was so great to have some people come up and just say, I haven't been doing anything for a little while. I want to help serve. I want to help get involved. I want to get back at it. Amazing. I'm sure a few of the rest of you thought, yeah, Pastor, that sounds really good, and I think it's important, but I've got no time. I've got no extra time. Okay, let's talk about that a little bit today. I want to talk about time and simplicity and priorities. You may know this about me, or you may not know this about me, but one of the things that I've been a student of my whole life is music. I've had friends who are professional musicians, songwriters, spent a lot of time with musical people. And so I've learned a few things about, like, what does it take to write a great song? One of the things I think that goes into writing really memorable, fantastic songs is simplicity, right? If I start singing, na, 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 hey, right? You all know it. Why? It's super simple. It was like one of the longest enduring Billboard #1 hits of all time. And they did that for like 10 minutes. It's crazy. I listen in the car with my kids, and they finally get to a place just when Paul's really starting to get into it, Ah! He does all the cool background vocal stuff. And my kids are like, Dad, is it done yet? Like, no, we're still na-na-naing. It's still a thing. Those are the kind of songs that, like, get stuck in your head, earworms. We have a few songs in our house that are banned from being played in the car now because Dad couldn't get to sleep one night because the kids were playing this annoyingly simple Dua Lipa song in the van while we were driving around. I'm like, okay, banned. There was a Britney Spears one, banned. We're not listening to those because they become stuck in your head. The simplicity of them. I wonder if any of you have gotten this song stuck in your head this week.
For me, I really like corn.
What do you like about corn?
It's corn! A good corn with knobs. It has the juice. I can't imagine a more beautiful thing. It's corn! I can tell you all about it. I mean, look at this thing. When I tried it, it got amazing thing.
Butter on corn is really, really good. All the millennials know exactly what I'm talking about right now, and a few of you don't. That's okay. If you're not on TikTok, you probably haven't seen this yet. But like the most annoyingly simple song, this thing has gone viral. It's just some little kid did an interview with somebody about corn, and then all of a sudden, everybody in the universe has to make a video with that as the background. And sometimes it's not even about corn. It's like, it's dogs. I love dogs. And they make this video about it, and it's really hilarious. If it wasn't stuck in your head before, you're welcome. It'll be stuck in your head now. Well, the thing that works about it is it's super simple. It's corn, right? I mean, anybody can remember and say that. Simplicity is hard, though. You know, sometimes we watch a viral video or we hear a song and we're like, I could do that. I could do that. If you could do it, everybody would be doing it. But not everybody does it because simplicity is actually not simple. Simplicity is hard. In my own life, I have experience with this, trying to write a vision statement for the church plant that we started over a decade ago. Gosh, I'm getting old. Over a decade ago in Toronto. I have Moleskine journals full of like one-liners, trying to get like 15 words to capture what Jesus had put in my heart to communicate to other people, to say, let's be a community like this. It's really, really difficult. You can add more words, that's easy. Like just adding words and adding words and adding words is super simple. But actually refining it and making it simple and memorable, like a viral video, it's sneezable, right? It can like transfer to other people. Probably not the best analogy after COVID, but you get what I'm saying, right? Something that can be easily transferred to another people. Simplicity is difficult. So for a little bit of inspiration, let's turn to the book of Philippians chapter 3 in particular. This is the Apostle Paul writing about his own experience of faith. This is what he says, but one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining towards what is ahead, I press on towards the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Jesus Christ. The Apostle Paul, a man of simplicity, the man who wrote the majority of the New Testament down for us that we could read and follow along, was a man of intense focus and major simplicity. And it didn't come easy for Paul. Because Paul, like so many of us, you know, us North American folk that have all kinds of ability to access all kinds of different things, you know, we're part of that 1% that we keep hearing about. You know, each and every one of us globally, in terms of how much we have, we're in that top 1% of people in the whole world. Paul was a privileged guy as well. He says this about himself just earlier in the chapter, starting halfway through verse 4. If someone else thinks they have reasons to put confidence in the flesh, I have more. Circumcised on the 8th day, of the people of Israel, the tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew of Hebrews. In regard to the law, a Pharisee. As for zeal, persecuting the church. As for righteousness based on the law, faultless. But whatever were gains for me, I now consider loss for the sake of Christ. What is more, I consider everything a loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord, for whose sake I have lost all things. I consider them garbage, that I may gain Christ and be found in him, not having a righteousness of my own that comes from the law, but it comes through faith in Christ, a righteousness that comes from God on the basis of faith. I want to know Christ, yes, to know the power of his resurrection and participate in his sufferings, becoming like him in death, and so somehow attaining to the resurrection from the dead. This is the one thing. Jesus Christ, crucified and raised from the dead, the one thing Paul has staked his entire life on. See, Paul had everything. It was like Paul had a family, come from wealth and blue blood. He went to an Ivy League school. He graduated from said school cum laude. Then he became a CEO and is living the first century Hebrew dream. There was nothing Paul wanted. But see, Paul understood as he came to Jesus that with Jesus, all of those things don't matter. All of those things are meaningless outside the context of Jesus and who he is. Jesus has a way of simplifying things for us. But simplicity, as Paul notes, isn't simple. It's a struggle. And I get it. We all live complex, busy lives. So you come to church and the church is like, hey, you should be more involved at church. Yeah, but I'm already so busy. What do you do in that instance? Well, I think you have to enter into the struggle of finding simplicity. And that simplicity for a Christ follower is all about our identity in Jesus Christ. It's all about who Jesus is and all about how and where he interacts with us. See, there's two things. If you're pursuing simplicity in your life, if you're thinking to yourself, I'm having a hard time finding room for some other things. Maybe it's not more room. Maybe it's not adding more words. Maybe it's simplifying and entering into the struggle. But see, in Jesus, God has made this simple. I would argue you need two things. If you're going to start finding simplicity, and out of simplicity, you're going to reprioritize your life, there are two things that you want to ask yourself when I consider what to put on my calendar and what to make most important. I would argue you need to be in the right place with the right people. Because where you are and who you're with will define the person that you become. How does that work? Well, where you are. Do you know that value changes based on where you are in the world? Jordan and I had the unbelievable privilege of visiting Hawaii together earlier this summer. This is a totally crazy story. I'll tell you some other time. But when I was there, we went to Costco. Costco in America is infinitely better than Costco in Canada. Infinitely better. I don't know why we can't get, it's just across the border, it's like an hour away. Why do we not get American Costco? Alberta gets a little bit of it. They're the land of the free over there in Alberta or whatever, but, we don't get American Costco. You can go to Costco in America and buy a bottle of water for $0.25. Just $0.25 for a bottle of water. Step outside Costco and go to the corner store across the road. That same bottle of water is 50 cents. Go to the local coffee shop or McDonald's, try and buy that same bottle of water, it's $1. Try to buy it at the hotel, $2. Try to buy it at the airport, now you're into $3. You see the point that I'm trying to make here? Same bottle of water, different places, different value. Are you spending your time in places where your value is high? Let me tell you something about Jesus. Nobody on earth will value you more than Jesus Christ. God has put infinitely high value on humanity. The thing that he made, of all the things that he made, and it completed creation for him. This is very good. In fact, so good, I'm going to impart a piece of who I am into every one of these people. God looks at you like a good father, and he sees in your face his own reflection. And just like a really great father, expressing the value that God has for you is almost impossible to do with human words. The scriptures make it clear how much God values us. And so, if you're thinking about simplicity and you're wondering, why would I even want to do any of this? I hope that when you come here, one of the things that you get the impression is that you are valued, because we are all God's representatives and witnesses. And it is incumbent on us to value other people in the same way that God values us. This should be a place where people come in and their value has no question. It should be apparent enough that people would choose to simplify their life just to be here in the midst of God's people, worshiping the God who values them the most. The right place is number one. The right people, number two. I don't need you right now. That's for later. In Matthew chapter 3, this is not Matthew chapter 3. This is 2 Timothy chapter 3. Paul is writing to his friend Timothy, and he says this as a warning to him, but mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power. Have nothing to do with such people. Now, I don't often turn to scriptures like that. But I think it's important for us to see that God's people have different priorities about their relationships. That God's people are looking for people who love God. Did any of those words ring true for you and any of the people that you have to come in contact with on a regular basis? Don't tell me who they are. I don't want to know. But look, we know this, and we teach it to our kids all the time, don't we? Don't you teach your kids to spend time with people who will build you up and who will make you a better person? Here's the question. Do we take our own advice? Is the majority of our time spent with people who will help us? Now, maybe the kickback is like, yeah, but I'm an emissary of Jesus, right? Like I'm his ambassador. I'm supposed to be witnessing to people. Absolutely. I didn't spend every waking second of your life with your church friends. That would be missing part of the gospel as well, because the gospel comes to you on its way to somebody else. And so there is a part of Christian life that has to be spent with people who don't yet know Jesus. But can I be honest with you? There was a movement in the church a number of years ago. If you haven't been at church a long time, this might not make any sense to you. Still might not make sense to you, but this was my observation. Having been a kid who grew up in church, see, there was a time when there was an activity at the church every single night of the week, and a good church person went to every single one of them every week. Does anybody remember those days? Right? There was something valuable about it, but it became a little bit oppressive. Am I remembering that correctly? Like we all kind of went, this is just too much. This is just too much. And so what ended up happening over time is we simplified church life. You know, there's no more every week Wednesday night Bible study or Sunday school for adults and children just before the church service, right? Like we've condensed a lot of these things. We've put them together. We've simplified it. And it was all kind of in the name of, hey, if I don't have time to spend with my friends outside the church, how can I witness to them? Good point. Absolutely. There's got to be balance in those relationships. Most of the time, I think people aren't that intentional about their relationships outside church. I think most of the time, we're doing the things that we love, and maybe we're trying to be kind and gracious to those people, but do we carry the mission out with us when we go? Because you can spend time with people who are far from Jesus and not do any gospel work. Happens all the time. Surrounding ourselves with the right kind of people, remembering who we're called to be, remembering the love that God has for us, being reminded through simple acts of kindness and service by the people that you're on mission with, will in turn turn you into a person on mission, because we're constantly reminded of who Jesus is and who he says we are. Our identity in Christ is the key to the struggle with simplicity. You know, because there's this little pamphlet I have here. By the way, never buy this off Amazon. I thought it was a book. It's not a book. This cost me $9. It was like the most expensive piece of paper I've ever bought in my whole life. It showed up and Melissa pulled it out of the envelope. She's like, did you really buy this? Like, apparently I did. It's called The Tyranny of the Urgent. Has anybody ever heard this phrase before? Yeah, this is where it came from. This wee little pamphlet written. And it's all about the problem of priority. See, when we say we don't have time for things, it's actually not that we don't have enough time. It's that we haven't put priorities in place to help us say no to the wrong things and yes to the right things. We haven't actually sat down and struggled with simplicity enough to let simplicity produce the power of priority in our lives. The whole point of this is that if you don't do that work, you will suffer under the tyranny of the urgent for the rest of your life. The thing that is closest to your face and most urgent will be most important always. In our house, Melissa and I have found a way to kind of put aside the tyranny of the urgent from time to time. We go outside on the deck and close the door to have a conversation. And the children know when we go outside and we close the door, Mommy and Daddy are having an important conversation. We have prioritized whatever we're doing in that moment. And they know if they come and they press their little faces up like fish in a bowl, that we're going to go, go away. Not because we don't love them, not because we don't want to hear what they have to say, or we don't want to see the drawing that they just made, but because that's not the most important thing we have to do right now. Priorities matter. Nothing is important until something is important enough for you to say no to something else. If you don't know what you're saying no to, then nothing is very important at all. And the Bible's really, really clear about priorities, is it not? So much of what we're taught through scriptures. You know, the first commandment, love the Lord your God. Have no other gods before me. Seek first the kingdom, Jesus said, and all of these other things will be added to you. God, what's the most important commandment? The most important commandment is this: love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Number 2, 1B, love your neighbor as yourself. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Priorities, 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 priorities. As followers of Jesus, are our priorities in similar places to where Jesus' priorities are? The stated priorities. We say we follow Jesus. What does that mean? If our following of Jesus doesn't produce priorities and simplicity in the way of Jesus, then are we following Jesus, or are we following some version of Jesus that's more comfortable and easier for us? Picking up what's most important, creating priorities, probably means leaving behind some things that are less important in our lives. I was talking to, or sometimes, baggage that we've picked up along the way that we simply haven't allowed Jesus to take care of for us yet. This process of going through and asking yourself and trying to simplify and trying to create priorities so that maybe we can be a part of what God is doing in the world will require something of us in the end, to leave behind some things that are of lesser importance than what God is calling us to in our future. Now, I was talking to somebody last week at the barbecue, and I said, you know, a lot of the time, I try very hard not to use my 3 favorite stories and analogies in a sermon. I broke my rule last week when I used sports. I apologize if you're not a sports person. A few of us are. I hope Michael Jordan made sense to you last week. There are 2 other things that I could draw on almost every week and come up with something to say. The first one is anything Marvel. It's in our house all the time. I could use it over and over and over again. The third one is just as nerdy. It's the Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings could make it into every sermon, always, all the time. I promise I won't do it, but I've done it today. And I hope that it translates for you. Because there's this really powerful scene. In fact, my favorite scene in all 9 hours of the extended versions of the movies. This is my favorite scene in the movies. There are many characters to find admirable and to fall in love with in Tolkien's story. The one that we're going to talk about today is Strider, or Aragorn, as he becomes called later. See, Aragorn comes from the lineage of kings, and his destiny is to be the king of men. But Aragorn, because, right, we're all in this mess in the Lord of the Rings because Aragorn's great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather wouldn't destroy the ring when he had the chance. And so evil is allowed to endure. And Aragorn, in spite of being a man of impeccable character, we're shown over and over and over in the type of man that he has become. He surrounded himself with the right people and became a ranger, far apart from any temptation to become what his old family had been and to perpetuate the evil. He surrounds himself with various leaders that help him become a better kind of man, but lives day by day with the struggle of what his past means. And in this scene, we're going to see one of Aragorn's mentors invite him to step into his future and leave behind what is broken. Can we play that clip now?
You're outnumbered, Aragorn. You need more men.
There are none.
There are those who dwell in the mountain.
Murderers. Traitors. You would call upon them to fight. They believe in nothing. They answer to no one.
They will answer to the King of Gondor. Andúril, the flame of the West, forged from the shards of Narsil.
Sauron will not have forgotten the sword of Elendil. The blade that was broken shall return to Minas Tirith.
The man who can wield the power of this sword can summon to him an army more deadly than any that walks this earth. Put aside the ranger. Become who you are born to be.
Was so inspired by that scene. I bought myself a replica of the sword. It might seem super self-indulgent, but I'm going to hang this sword up in my office because I hope that every time somebody comes to see me here and walks in my office, they will see this sword hanging on the wall, and they'll remember that God is calling each and every one of us to make him a priority in our life. Whatever it is that is keeping you from making him the most important thing in your life, the invitation of Christ is to put aside. And maybe that's not something that we've been challenged with a whole lot during COVID. But that's exactly what this 2 weeks is about. You know, I'm not ready to declare COVID to be over or to say anything crazy like that, because that'll come around and bite me right in the rear end someday. But I do think that it's time for us to see life through the lenses of what's coming down the pipe and not what's been in the past. That God has something extraordinary for us to be a part of. Next week, we're going to spend a little bit of time just thinking about who God is calling us to be as a church, what the future might look like. I really hope that you'll come back and you'll join us. For today, as we start to wrap up our service, you may have noticed we had communion cups set up out in the foyer. If you didn't see that or didn't get a chance to grab one, just put up your hand right now. Pastor Jordan has some in a basket. He's going to come around. He's going to bring you one. Because here's what I'd like us to do. I'd like us just to spend a couple of minutes around the table of Christ, asking God, what is it? What is it today that I can do to prioritize you in my life? What is it that my family can do to make you a priority? If you're a follower of Jesus, this is something that Christ has called us to do over and over and over again. Remember me. Every time you do this thing, remember me. I think it would be totally honoring for us today to just spend a couple of minutes going, how do I need to remember your call on my life, Jesus? So here's what I want you to do. The band is going to start singing a song. I want you to stay in your seats for the first verse, and just with your family. After you've had a couple of seconds to breathe and to think, invite your family to take communion together. If you're here alone, that's okay. Do it as you feel led. And after a little bit, the band is going to invite you to stand, and we're going to sing this song together.
And that is everything for this week at Burnett Church Online. Again, if you have any questions or need anything at all, you know that you can email us. All of our email addresses are very easy to get a hold of. So if you know the first name of a pastor and burnettchurch.com, you can get in touch with us. We would love to hear from you. We would love to know how we can pray for you or support you or help you in any way. Let us know. We love hearing from you during the week, and we love being able to serve. So thanks again for joining us, and have a great week. God bless.